This is Steve, Dichroic Glassman. On this video we're going to talk about strengthening our panels with an element called zinc. That's this stuff. It comes shiny when it's new, and you're going to use it to put on the outside, like in this case here, and you're going to take those solder balls that you've been watching me in my previous videos. I'm going to hold the zinc in one hand like this, pressing it against my panel, and with my soldering iron, of course I'm going to have it fluxed, I'm going to take this solder ball and jump it right across. Jump it right across. This, by putting these solder balls, it allows me to have that hands-free, or to have my hands proficiently using them, one to hold the iron, the other to hold my zinc, and it's as though I have a third hand helping me by having these solder balls already in place. I always do this on every panel. Wherever the solder is going to meet the edge, I always have these solder balls ready. And you want to back those solder balls off, you see here, about 1/4 of an inch. The track is not 1/4 of an inch. It just allows you enough room to push the track back in and have enough room to melt it, heat it up with flux again, of course, and jump it across. Now, what you want to do is you want to make sure with some steel wool that your zinc is shiny. The reason you want to do that is so that you're going to steel wool off any oxidation. And when you're ready to do at this step, you're not going to want to stop and get fatigued and figure out and get mad why your solder is not sticking to your zinc. So you want to steel wool your zinc, no matter what it looks like, even if you bring it home fresh from the shop, brand new shiny like this, or straight out of the box, it still has the opportunity to oxidize depending on the humidity that you have in your area, or where it even came from. So by shining it up, here's where we're especially interested in, is having this edge right here shiny, so that it's a great conductor of the solder that's going to jump right across. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you a close-up of this corner. You see that my stained glass, let's see if this camera is going to pick it up. The stained glass, I'll find a pointer somehow. Let's use this little pencil. The stained glass right here at the quarter is about 1/16 of an inch away. Let's see if I can get a straight down view. I think you get the idea here. This edge right here does not meet the corner. I leave about 1/16 of an inch. It allows me to drop solder in this area, this cavity it's going to be created. Let's do it. What I don't want to do is see this, where it's exactly butted up together tight. I want to create a little area, because I want the solder to seep in between both pieces and create a strong bond. A lot of times I'll hang my panels using zinc edging, and that's a whole nother video. So this zinc holds a pretty tight roll in the grand scheme of things. So I have these solder balls all the way across around the panel, and when I let's use my little piece, experimental piece here. There you go. That's kind of where I want to see. I want to see a space in between. That way I get enough solder in that thing that it fills it up. Of course, you want to flux it, so you're going to take in my case, I only use paste flux, which is a Vaseline base, by the way, and I want to flux this area, taking care that I've steel wooled my flux, or my zinc. Now, when I meet them, as I did here, a shorter piece and a longer piece, I'm not concerned that I've spliced it. In fact, it's no big deal. I'm going to fill that gap, very small gap, with solder, and then when I'm done, that's a whole nother thing as to how I sand my edges, because I don't want bumps on my edges. When you see what I do with my edges, they're sanded as smooth as you got right here, just connected over to the solder. You'll see what I mean in the next video. So keep your scraps. You can use all of them. Sometimes I've even used 1-inch splices when my piece was longer than the 6 foot. Maybe it's 6 foot 2 inches, so I've needed just a piece this big Don't be afraid to take and cut that piece. Now here's what I'm using to cut my corners with. I love this Griffin miter saw, and as you can see, I use my blade all the way down to the edge. It needs to be serviced. And here's what they look like. They're an abrasive blade. It's called Griffin cutoff blades. And they tremendous saw. Let's see, I'll plug mine back in. And they got a powerful little motor. And you're just gonna, and I set my miter to 45, it says that on there. Oh, this thing cuts so well. And when you need to change your angle, you just simply unloosen and you change your angle. And the angles, you can see them written down, and they're very finely here. So if you want a 30 degree, if you're going to do a triangle, 30/3, it doesn't matter. You have all those abilities simply by doing that. So it's a handy dandy saw. So let's get that out of the way. That's a Griffin. And they work very well. I would definitely advocate you get one if you're going to do a lot of stained glass and you're in the business for it and you want to strengthen your windows. So depending on the size of the zinc, you have to deduct the size of your window. And there's a way of doing this that's very simple. If you need to test yourself and you have the zinc, here's how you would do it. Take a two, if you can't determine how much room two of these pieces are going to displace, here's an easy way of doing it. Take a bevel that you know is true. Here's a 2-inch bevel. All you got to do is take one piece of zinc. I'm trying to do this with camera in one hand. Can be pretty good. And put a zinc in the other side, or put a zinc on both sides. And what you want to do is you want to measure it. So let me grab my ruler. And let's turn it this way. And I'm going to lay my ruler straight across. And my ruler tells me it's 2 3/8 inches. Which means that by adding a piece of zinc to the width and to the length, you need to deduct 3/8 of an inch. Because remember, here we go. Let's try this again. This zinc added to this 2-inch bevel, added to this, overall just made my 2-inch bevel grow to 2 3/8 inches. So let's figure out, what has that got to do with anything? So let me take a piece of, let me grab a pen. If your panel is going to be 20 inches overall, and you're trying to figure out how big your window is going to grow, or whatever. Let's say it's 20 inches. What you want to do is minus 3/8 of an inch so that your pattern is 19 5/8 inches. That's, you take the same 3/8 off widthwise or lengthwise. In fact, you have to do them both if you're going to have zinc all the way around. In other words, by adding zinc to your panel, they call this 3/8 inch U zinc. If you add zinc all the way around, it's going to cause your panel to grow 3/8 of an inch, as we just proved here. This is really an easy way of keeping a bevel and adding your zinc, and that will tell you, that will determine how big your window is going to grow. Very important if you're reverse engineering a panel and you're making it in a mold or a jig and you want it to fit a specific window opening. A lot of people tell me that they don't use zinc because they can't figure out how to determine how big their stained glass needs to be. And we just did it here. I hope I haven't confused you, but this tells us that these two pieces of zinc just made the bevel grow 3/8 of an inch. So use that measurement and that handy dandy little way of seeing it in your applications, and that will help you determine what your window is going to grow or what you need to start your window out at, and then use your zinc accordingly. So shine up your zinc with steel wool, cut it back a little way so that you get a little space in between there that allows you to solder it for a good strong bond. And keep it straight. In other words, you don't want to turn it. You see what I'm doing with my hand? Make sure it's in there straight, and you'll have no problem. And then you'll definitely want to watch what I do to sand the edges in my next video. So I'm going to complete this task. Then I'm going to solder the back of the panel. Before I do that, I'm going to have my whole edge soldered. My little solder balls are really going to help. Then I'm going to put it on towels or carpet padding because I have jewels in this panel and they stick up. Let's see if we can get down. You see, they stick up far above my glass. So by putting towels down underneath my panel, when I flip this over to solder it, will allow for my jewels to embed into the towel or the carpet padding, and my whole panel thinks it's laying nice and flat. That way I don't break it by putting on extra pressure where this peak might cause this to crack right straight across. Oh my gosh, we hate that when us stained glass artists hear that. Another thing too is this dichroic jewel. Look at how thick that is. Huge. So I leave this out until I solder the backside. Then I will foil this and put it right into place and solder it. That way I don't even have to deal with a towel or a carpet padding. That's huge. That's easily 5/8 of an inch. But it's an impressive dichroic jewel that I create, and it adds so much depth and rainbow-esque that I choose to use it. So a word of warning: when you have something really high peaked, allow the cavity to remain here as you see, and then come back and solder it in when the whole piece is done. That way you're not fighting that bevel or that jewel and causing to have problems with your window. It's always easy to just come back, drop this in place, solder it on the front, flip, and you'll have to flip the window over. Remember, we have no way of avoiding this, but you're going to want to allow something, heavy towels or padding, to absorb that depth so that you don't break the panel while you're working on your project. It's a way of using high peak bevels and jewels that allows you to have that level of comfort knowing that you're not going to break your piece and be able to do it very smoothly and effortlessly. So hopefully some of these points didn't confuse you, and look forward to the next video. Thank you very much for all the warm comments and compliments. Follow me on Facebook, Dichro, D-I-C-H-R-O, leave a space, as though my last name is Glassman. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.